Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello and welcome to our series Islamic Finance. This is episode number 6. In this episode with Shaeikh Shady Suleiman from Sydney, Australia, researcher in the field of Islamic economics. We're going to be talking more about Islamic financing and how we as individuals can benefit from Islamic banks to buy a house, to buy a car, to have our own small enterprise or project. And what happens in the case of default, and what are the duties and rights of each party here. Shaeikh Shady, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for your insight so far. Looking forward to hear more from you. And here we're talking about, financing for individuals. I want to buy a house, I want to buy a car. And you're telling me don't go to the banks because they give interests and this is haram. And sometimes you're going to tell me don't even go to the Islamic bank because they don't work according to Sharia. And this might be the case in many cases. And sometimes Muslims are so confused because they hear some of their scholars say that even the non-traditional system of banking is halal. So what shall we do?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Brother Muhammad, you mentioned very, very good points here. And inshallah we'll take point by point. Now obviously in Western world, Muslims who live in the Western world, they have it a lot more harder and a lot more tougher in a non-Muslim world than what they have in a Muslim world. A lot of the Muslims live in the Muslim world, maybe they do have that facility of trying to finance themselves through an Islamic bank, through an acceptable mean or an acceptable way of that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Sharia. One of the things that really impressed me is how a bank will buy a complex or build a complex and then they start selling those complexes to people over a period of 20 years. And that's the most common one that you have these days. And that's a very good idea, which there is no doubt in it if it's done, of course, in accordance to the Sharia way. The bank owns it and the bank sells it. Now, the common way that you find people when they want to buy a house, for example, or buy a car, or buy whatever they want to buy, they will go to the bank. They will go to the bank. And they want $100,000 to buy this house. So what the bank does, the bank gives them $100,000. So what did the bank do? The bank gave them money. In return, that they pay back that money to the bank with an extra at the top. So this is riba. This is riba. There's difference between if the bank owns that house and says, look, I want to sell you that house of $500,000 in a period of 25 years. There's nothing wrong with that. Why? Because what you've exchanged with the bank is that you bought a house with money. But the common thing is that you take money and you return money. So you've taken $100,000 from the bank and you've returned to the bank $150,000 in a period of 25 years or 20 years or whatever number of years that you've done. This is where riba is. This is haram. If I take $100,000, I must give back $100,000, regardless, even if it's after 20 years. Right. Some people even come up with the question, say, but the value of the $100,000,
the inflation,
yeah,
so
20 years ago is not the value of it right now. The value of it now is probably 500,000. Still, that's not an argument.
So the idea is in the fixed pricing and
as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, gold with gold, silver with silver. Okay, but if the exchange is different, I'm buying a house with money, then it doesn't matter how expensive or how much I pay for the house. Now the best way is that the bank owns that. We mentioned before the murabaha. That's the best, easiest, simplest. Okay, I'm interested in buying a house, I'm interested in buying a car. I go to the bank buys the house, the bank buys the car, and then they sell it to me with an extra cost, with an extra profit over a period of 10 years or 15 years or whatever agreement we agree. And I put the house or the car as a guarantee that if I can't pay this amount of money that they paid for, they'll take the house or sell the house or sell the car, and then they take the profit and give me back whatever is left. So this is the easiest way.
Indeed.
There's other forms. The other form is musharaka, and that's also common amongst the Islamic banks. Where, for example, I want to buy this house, and I've got the house is worth $100,000, and I've got $20,000. So I come to the bank. What does the bank give me? They give me the offer of going as partners into this house. So I pay $20,000 and they pay $80,000.
So I own 20% of
I own 20% of the house and the bank owns 80. Okay, now what happens? Who's the owner of that house? It's a partnership.
It's a partnership.
20-80.
Exactly.
And the partnership, when Islam talks about partnership, partners must take fair and equal just responsibility over what they are partnering. So I'm 20%, I must take responsibility 20% of everything.
Exactly.
Okay. And what the bank does is that you and the bank now are partners in this house. And what Islamic banks mostly do, then they give you the chance to start buying their share over a period of 20 years. But where the downfall is of some Islamic banks that we've experienced in the West, they are your partners, but they don't take any responsibility as being partners. You pay, like for example, in Australia, we have something called stamp duty. When you buy a house, you pay tax. The bank tells you pay the tax. Well, you are my partner. You should be also pay tax.
80% of the stamp.
Yeah, so don't tell me we are partners in one area, not partners in another area. Okay, if there is something happens to the house, then you are also my partner. Okay, so the musharaka is another common thing that happens with the Islamic banks, that they go in with you, they enter with you a contract as they are your partners, take full responsibility as your partners, and also if you're going to live in that house, you'll be paying your partner rent. Because if I am the bank, I've got 80% share in this house and you've got 20%, and we've got this house and we rent this house for $200 a week, then I've got the right to get $160 a week.
Exactly.
So what the Islamic bank, he tells you, look, you pay me $160 a week rent because
that's 80% of the fair value of the weekly.
The other 20%, that's your business, what you do with it. You pay yourself, you get it off someone who rents the house. That's but at the end of the day, I'm a partner. So what the bank gets, they get the rent, and also they give you the chance to buy a share. Every year, for example, buy 5%. And then you become 25% owner.
And they are the ones that define the share they will give you?
Yeah, this is something that you agree with them morally. Okay, and the bank accepts that because it's their interest. So year by year, start buying a percentage from them. And
in the middle, both parties could agree to, accelerate or decelerate.
Of course, that's the rights. That's the rights of partnership. That's the rights of partnership. So this is one form. Now,
and this
obviously,
is acceptable.
Of course, it's acceptable.
It's a
simple. No, it's musharaka.
It's musharaka.
Partnership. Okay, partnership that me and the bank went into. Me as the customer and the bank as the financial holder has got the money. We went together as partners buying this property, and then dealing as partners, like a partnership. And slowly I start buying my share, because what's my problem? My problem is it's not that I don't have the money. I have the money, but I need 20 years to get it. So I'm getting paid wages every year, and I need to pay the money.
So what happens in the case of death then?
Okay, in case of death, obviously the partnership breaks and it goes to the heirs, the inheritors, those who inherit. But
what if the inheritance can't?
Then they break the partnership and they
get what they paid.
The portion of their father or whoever they inherit goes back into the mirath. Yeah. So this is a simple way.
Now, what if I'm the borrower? I have an idea, a great idea, a small project that wouldn't cost much, but I don't have the money. So I borrow from the bank. I give them the plan or the budget study, and in that case, they can go in as partners with me.
Okay, you've got two ways. If I want to finance a project, or I want to finance an investment, you've got two ways. Either partnership, which means I have to put in some money, or mudaraba. Okay, partnership that I want to invest in this big complex is going to cost $1 million. I'll probably have $100,000. Okay, then the bank puts in $900,000, and we are both partners into this complex, into this project. So at the end of the day, the profit, 90% is going to go to whom?
To the 900,000.
It's going to go to the bank. And 10% will come back to me because we are partners. Or go as mudaraba. Mudaraba means I don't go in with my money, I go in with my talent. I need to build this project for $1 million. The bank gives me $1 million. I do not put in a cent. See, this is the difference between musharaka and mudaraba. Musharaka is that both parties put in money. Mudaraba means one party puts in the money and the other party puts in its the talent and experience.
And the talent could be this party or that party. The bank or the individual or the institution.
If I want to invest into a big project, Obviously it's going to be the bank that's going to be putting the money.
Right.
So the bank will put in the money, and then I invest that money, and but we have to agree on the percentage.
And as a depositor in that Islamic bank, I should be knowing which project my money is being used in.
When it comes to mudaraba, if I am investing my money with you, you have to be very clear to me. We have to agree on two main things. Number one is the percentage of profit, and number two is you must be very clear to me where you're going to use this money. So if you're going to say, I'm going to invest this money into building, then you cannot go and buy clothing with it or go to China and that. So you have to be very clear.
All right, clear again. We'll be taking a break here, and we'll be back for the second part of our episode with Shaykh Shady Al Suleiman in a very short while. Stay with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Once again, Shaykh Shady talking about the means of financing in Islamic banking, and how can individuals and banks profit together and invest together.
You brought up a point that someone wants to invest, and you know, most of the times you've got the builders or businessmen who have the talent, have the ideas, have the contacts, have the connections, have the knowledge, but they don't have the money.
Exactly.
Okay, as I mentioned, they could go in as with the bank, and both. That means that the customer must provide some money, whatever amount of money that is. Or they go in as mudaraba, which means they take the money from the bank and they invest that money into that property. But there's two main things they must agree with the bank. Is number one, that they must agree on the profit, on the percentage of the profit. That means that could be anything in agreement. Could be 10% to 90%, could be 50 to 50, whatever they agree. And the second thing is that this customer must be clear to the bank or to the investor that's investing the money exactly what they're investing the money in. And he's not allowed to do with that money
anything else
than what he had agreed. So for example, if he agreed with the bank that he's going to invest $1 million into property, then he must invest into property. He can't go and do business with it. And thirdly, of course, if there's a loss, it's on both, which means he lost his talent. He can't say, well, I want money for my talent, and the time that he's put into that, and the labor work that he's put, and the bank also loses the money. So this is one form which is called mudaraba.
And usually they would agree on the sharing of the burden of the loss percentages as well?
No, see, because there's
supposedly there's a loss, we have to share it together, the loss.
No, if it's mudaraba, it's only one party that invested the money. The other one only invested talent, so there's nothing for him to lose. Okay, but if it's musharaka, then both. Both will lose in accordance to their percentage. And these are two.
And does the division of the percentages in the case of a profit, does it have to be the same division in the case of a loss, or is it according to an agreement?
If it's musharaka,
yes,
they both lose and they both win according to their percentage. So if they win, with the percentage, like if I've got 90%, I'll take 9% of the profit. If I've got 10%, I'll take 10% of. If we lose, I'll lose 10%, and the other one loses 90%. But with mudaraba, you only have one party investing money. The other one is the other party is not investing money; they're investing their talent. So if they lose the money, then it's going to be the bank that's going to lose the money, not the person who was using that money to buy and sell or to do that project. And if they make a profit, then the profit will get into percentage according to the agreement from the beginning, where the one who invested the money will take a percentage of, or take a certain amount of money from the percentage, and the other one who dealt with the money will also take a percentage. This is mudaraba. Or they could do wakala, and which means a commission, which means that the bank will assign someone to do a job on their behalf. So the wakil will be more of an employee or more of a contractor, an agent, which that's obviously, there's not much benefit for the agent to make much money on that. It's like he's more of an employee than anything else. But the most two common one is a sharaka, partnership, or mudaraba. That's the best way you could finance someone who is in need of money. So that, like as a bank financing someone who is in need of money to do a certain project or a business and so on. And obviously we have this common problem that you have a lot of good Muslim businessmen, but the only reason they're not producing and not developing or not growing is because they don't have the money, they don't have the capital. And the only way they could get that capital is from the bank. But the bank gives you money and you have to return back that money with an extra at the top. And obviously it's not acceptable because that's riba. And some people say, but I will use that for the good and I'll become rich and start investing and start donating to the mosque. Again, we do mention the qaida, al-ghaya la tubarrir wasila. You cannot use a haram mean to get to halal.
See, Muslims are confused, Sheikh, because some have heard fatwas saying that the traditional way of nowadays banking is halal, and others have heard fatwas that even the Islamic banks are haram. So they are really confused.
There's no doubt not all Islamic banks are in accordance to the Sharia. Okay? It doesn't mean that if a bank puts a banner or a sign in front of the bank saying it's an Islamic bank, it means an Islamic bank. There's a lot of Islamic banks. There's a lot of banks out there that claim to be Islamic and accordance to the Sharia that are very far away from the Islamic banks. I've experienced some banks, okay, they call themselves Islamic banks, Sharia compliant banks, and all they do is get money from the banks and give it to you. So what did you do here? You've just been a middleman getting money from the bank and giving it to me.
Like, like the phone you mentioned.
And you've got some banks who are trying to do their best, but obviously, as I said, the regulations of the government, legislation and the law sometimes makes it hard on them.
Are governments of Muslim countries encouraging Islamic banking, or do you think that they are not giving it enough attention?
There are some countries who are leading the world with Islamic finance, such as Malaysia, such as Bahrain, for example, Dubai or
Saudi
Emirates,
Arabia.
UAE. Like these are one of the leading countries when it comes to Islamic finance, and they are working and promoting that. One of the common things that you realize that if you calculate at the end of the day, when you take money from the Islamic banks or the normal bank, you end up paying extra more with the Islamic bank than a normal bank. And a lot of people use that as an excuse, saying, why should I go through an Islamic bank when the normal bank down the road takes less, and at the end of the day, I'm paying $400,000 than $500,000 through the bank. Well, that's still not an excuse.
Well, usually this is not, I mean, usually the difference doesn't reach that much. Usually it's a difference of, 7.5% or 7.75%.
Yeah, but if you calculate it in some Western countries, like where I come from, it is a...
maybe I'm talking about here.
The difference is significant. You're talking about maybe $50,000 to $100,000 sometimes. But the difference is one here, one is pleasing Allah, the other one is declaring one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'd rather have patience in this world over what I go through than having patience in the hereafter. The Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum, when they used to leave their houses, their wives will say to them, please only bring what's halal to us. We'd rather starve in this world and have patience on that than having patience on the punishment of Allah.
Subhanallah.
So sometimes life, it's not always that things should be so convenient and relaxing. Sometimes I need to struggle to please Allah Azza wa Jal. So I'd rather struggle through that than go through that. Another common one, like for example, sometimes renting, you end up paying rent more than what if you're taking a mortgage or taking a loan, that you pay your payments or repay your payments. And this is a common one. I rent a house, I'm paying $2,000 a month for renting a house. If I buy this house, my payments to the bank will be $1,800. This is a common one. Then why should I, as they say, I'm paying dead money to, when I rent, when I could have my own house? Still, that's not an excuse. Yes, it makes sense in one way that, you rather invest that money into a place that you know it's going to end up for you than that money going somewhere else. But still, that's not acceptable. Going back to what you mentioned about the fatwa.
Yes.
The fatwa and
the confused Muslims.
Yeah, and the rulings that many scholars at this time and era, I would not say many, but a fair number of them, which some of them are renowned scholars and prominent scholars that we know in Muslim world, gave the fatwa that you are allowed to deal with riba. Some of them even say the first house is acceptable. Some of them say the first house is acceptable. Well, I've spoken to some of those scholars. There's difference between a scholar living amongst the West and knowing exactly what's happening than a scholar who's hearing about what's happening in the West. Some of the scholars are given the wrong information. Some of the scholars are told that we live on the streets and we've got nothing else, and the only way that we could have a shelter above our heads is by going through riba. This is what some of the scholars heard. So obviously the scholar looked at it from the point of darura. But the reality is in the West, where I come from, there's no one that sleeps on the street, and you know, you could still rent. You could still rent.
You know, the fatwas were not just for the West, it was also for here, for the Middle East. So
I'm
it was
talking
basically a fatwa. Some fatwas said the traditional way of nowadays banking is halal.
Yeah, so I'm talking about some of those scholars, and those prominent scholars who mentioned that. But I know there's others who just said, you know, any form of riba or any form of banking, which is, of course...
Well, of course, they didn't say any form of riba. I mean, what they said
form of any banking, you go to any traditional bank or any modern bank.
Of course, maybe they calculated the inflation rate, or they saw that, you know, if you keep your money into the drawer, then it will be eaten up, or nobody knows where that came from. But it is confusing Muslims.
Yeah, it is, of course, when people start hearing that. But I'll still say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes it very clear that riba is haram. We know that this is riba. It's very clear from its action. It's very clear from its content. And it's very clear from its name. And we should avoid that, regardless whether, you know, I'll be renting or moving a house every 6 months. At the end of the day, I'd rather struggle in this world and not displease Allah Azza wa Jal than displeasing Allah and going to the hellfire or getting punished. And this is not disrespecting any scholar or any sheikh or any imam who gave the fatwa that it is okay. But I still find it very, very hard to believe that this is an acceptable way that the Sharia would allow someone to deal with riba, because riba is evil, and Allah did not declare war on any haram the way He declared war on riba. And because it's so evil, we should not go near riba in any way or form.
Subhanallah. Right. I don't know, we only have 1 minute. I wanted to ask a question. I hope we'll try. The guarantees again for the loans. I'm a regular person. I have a great idea. I'm sure it's going to succeed, but I don't have any guarantee. I go to the Islamic bank. What happens? Or the non-Islamic one? What happens?
Well, the guarantee is not a important or an integral part of the contract. That's up to the lender. If I'm lending you money, it's up to me to accept a guarantee or not. I could lend you money without guarantee. So it depends on the Islamic banks. Maybe, you know, some Islamic banks would not ask you for a guarantee, but most of them will always want to reassure that you are able to pay that money back.
Maybe they could judge that the idea is in itself a guarantee.
Yeah. So the guarantee, the rahan is not...
It could be an idea?
Yeah, I'm saying it could be, but the rahan, the guarantee is not an integral part for the validity of the contract. I could give you money without a guarantee. I could give $500,000 and I'll not even ask you for a guarantee. That's up to the lender.
That's huge risk.
Then that's up to the lender. It's up to the bank or up to the lender for them to accept. But what's important is that we write that. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran al-Kareem, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا تَدَيَنْتُمْ بِدَيْنٍ إِلَىٰ أَجْلٍ مُسَمًّى فَاكْتُبُوا. All those who believe, if you take a loan to a certain period of time, then record it. It is important that when we take a lend, whether we lend to someone or borrow money, we record it and document it and get two people to witness that.
Subhanallah. Shaykh Shady Suleiman, thank you very much, and looking forward, inshallah, to the upcoming episodes of Islamic Finance. Dear viewers, until we meet again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.